The morning sun streamed through the kitchen window as 17-year-old Maya finished her breakfast. She could hear her mother packing lunch in the next room, the familiar sounds of rustling paper bags and clicking Tupperware lids. Today was different from all the other mornings they'd shared in their old house. Today was Maya's first day at Lincoln High School, in the small town of Millbrook. "Are you nervous, sweetheart?" her mother asked, walking into the kitchen with Maya's lunch. Maya smiled and shook her head, though inside she felt butterflies dancing in her stomach. Moving to a new town was never easy, but being the new blind girl at school always came with extra challenges. She had learned this lesson the hard way at her previous school, where it took months before other students saw her as Maya first and the blind girl second. "I'll be fine, Mom. It's just another first day," Maya replied, reaching for her white cane that stood propped against the kitchen counter. Her mother squeezed her shoulder gently. "I know you will be. And remember, if anyone gives you trouble, you call me right away." Maya laughed softly. "Mom, I'm 17. I think I can handle a few teenagers." But as her mother drove her to school that morning, Maya's confidence wavered, slightly. The car pulled up to what sounded like a busy place. She could hear dozens of car doors slamming, students shouting greetings to friends they hadn't seen all summer, and the general chaos that came with the first day of a new school year. "The main office is straight through those front doors and down the hall on your right," her mother said. Though she had already walked Maya through the school layout twice the week before during orientation. "I remember, Mom. Go to work. I've got this." Maya stepped out of the car and immediately felt the warm September air on her face. She took a deep breath, adjusted her backpack, and began walking toward the school entrance. Her cane tapped rhythmically against the concrete walkway as she made her way through groups of chattering students. The hallways inside buzzed with energy. Maya could hear locker doors banging shut, teachers calling out reminders about first day, procedures, and the general excitement that came with a fresh start. She found the main office easily and checked in with the secretary, who handed her a schedule and offered to have someone walk her to her first class. "That's very kind, but I'll be fine," Maya said politely. She had memorized the school layout during her orientation visit and preferred to navigate independently when possible. Her first few classes went smoothly. The teachers were welcoming, and most of her classmates seemed curious but respectful. By lunchtime, Maya was feeling more optimistic about her fresh start in Millbrook. She found a quiet spot in the cafeteria and was eating her sandwich when she overheard two girls at the next table talking about choir auditions. "I heard Mr. Peterson is really tough this year," one girl was saying. "My sister graduated 2 years ago and she said he made 3 kids cry during auditions." "But the choir here is supposed to be amazing," the other girl replied. "They won state championships 3 times in the last 5 years. Maya's interest was immediately piqued. Music had been her passion since she was 5 years old. Her parents had enrolled her in piano lessons when she was young, partly as therapy to help with finger coordination, but Maya had taken to it like a fish to water. By the time she was 10, she was already playing pieces that impressed her teachers. By 15, she was accompanying her church choir and giving piano lessons to younger students. At her old school, Maya had been the choir accompanist for 2 years. It was the one place where her blindness never seemed to matter. When she sat at the piano bench, she wasn't the blind girl anymore. She was just Maya, the girl who could make music come alive. After lunch, Maya made her way to the guidance counselor's office. Mrs. Rodriguez had been kind during orientation, and Maya hoped she might have some information about joining the choir. "Maya, how's your first day going?" Mrs. Rodriguez asked warmly as Maya knocked on her open door. "Really well, actually. I was wondering if you could tell me about the choir program here. I heard they're quite good." Mrs. Rodriguez's face lit up. "Oh, they're exceptional. Mr. Peterson has built one of the finest high school choir programs in the state. Are you interested in singing?" "I am, but I also play piano. At my old school, I was the choir accompanist. How wonderful. You should definitely talk to Mr. Peterson. The choir room is just down the hall in the music wing. I believe they're having informal auditions today after school." Maya thanked Mrs. Rodriguez and spent the rest of the afternoon thinking about the possibility of joining Lincoln High's choir. When the final bell rang, she made her way to the music wing, following the sound of voices warming up with scales and arpeggios. The choir room was larger than the one at her old school. Maya could tell by the way sound bounced off the walls and ceiling. She stood in the doorway for a moment, listening to students chatting and practicing. At the far end of the room, she could hear someone playing piano, though not particularly well. "Excuse me," Maya said to the first person she encountered. "Is this where choir auditions are happening?" "Yeah, but you'll have to talk to Mr. Peterson," a boy replied. "He's the tall guy by the piano with the gray hair." Maya thanked him and made her way toward the piano, her cane tapping softly against the polished floor. The room gradually grew quieter as students noticed her walking through. "Mr. Peterson," Maya said when she reached the front of the room. A man's voice answered, though he sounded distracted. "Yes? What can I do for you?" "I'm Maya Chen. I just transferred here, and I'd like to audition for choir." There was a pause. Maya could sense that Mr. Peterson was looking at her, taking in her white cane and dark glasses. "I see," he said finally, his tone noticeably cooler than it had been moments before. "Well, Miss Chen, I appreciate your interest, but our choir program is quite demanding. We perform complex pieces that require precise timing and coordination. Students need to be able to follow visual cues and read music quickly." Maya felt her heart sink, but she pressed on. "I understand it's challenging, Mr. Peterson. I've been singing for 12 years, and I was the accompanist at my previous school's choir for 2 years." "Accompanist?" Mr. Peterson's tone carried a hint of condescension that made several nearby students shift uncomfortably. "I'm sure you've managed to play some simple pieces, but our accompanist needs to sight-read complex arrangements and follow conducting cues. That requires abilities that frankly wouldn't be possible given your situation." The room had gone completely silent now. Maya could feel every student's attention focused on this conversation, and her cheeks burned with embarrassment. This wasn't the first time someone had dismissed her abilities before giving her a chance, but it never got easier. "Maybe there are other activities that would be more suitable," Mr. Peterson continued, his voice carrying across the quiet room. "The school has many clubs that might be better fits." Maya stood frozen by the piano, her hands gripping her cane tighter than necessary. Part of her wanted to leave immediately, to escape the humiliation of being rejected so publicly. But another part of her, the part that had spent years proving doubters wrong, wanted to fight back. "I understand your concerns," Maya said quietly, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "But I've been playing piano since I was 5. I can play by ear and I've memorized hundreds of pieces. At my old school, I never had sheet music anyway." "Miss Chen," Mr. Peterson said with barely concealed impatience, "I'm sure you're very talented for someone in your position, but this is a competitive program. We don't have time for accommodations or special arrangements. Perhaps you could find another musical outlet that would be more appropriate." The dismissal was clear and final. Maya nodded slowly, fighting back tears of frustration and embarrassment. She had hoped things would be different at Lincoln High, but apparently some attitudes were the same everywhere. "I understand," she said, softly. "Thank you for your time." As Maya turned to leave, she could hear whispered conversations starting up around the room. Some students sounded uncomfortable with what they had witnessed, while others seemed to accept their director's judgment without question. Maya walked toward the door with as much dignity as she could muster, her cane tapping against the floor in the otherwise silent room. Just as she reached the doorway, Maya heard Mr. Peterson address the remaining students. "All right, everyone, let's get started with auditions. Who wants to go first?" Maya paused in the hallway outside the choir room, listening to the sounds of students preparing to audition for the program she had just been barred from joining. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine what it would have been like to be part of Lincoln High's award-winning choir, to contribute her musical talents to something special. Then she straightened her shoulders, adjusted her backpack, and began walking toward the school's exit. Tomorrow was another day, and Maya had learned long ago that setbacks were just temporary obstacles on the path to proving herself. The next morning, Maya woke up feeling determined. She had spent the evening before telling her parents about what happened in the choir room, and their support had helped strengthen her resolve. Her mother had been angry about Mr. Peterson's treatment, but Maya had asked her not to call the school. She wanted to handle this herself. Sometimes people need time to see past their first impressions, Maya had told her mother. I'm not giving up yet. During her second day at Lincoln High, Maya made an effort to learn more about the school's music program. Between classes, she struck up conversations with students who seemed friendly, asking about their experiences with different teachers and activities. Mr. Peterson is tough, admitted a junior named Katie during lunch. But he really does make the choir amazing. Last year we got to perform at the state capitol. What's he like as a teacher? Maya asked carefully. Katie paused, seeming to choose her words thoughtfully. He gets results. The choir wins competitions all the time, but he can be pretty harsh if you don't meet his standards. Some kids love him. Others are kind of scared of him. After school, Maya walked past the music wing again. She could hear the choir practicing inside, their voices blending in beautiful harmonies. She stopped in the hallway, just listening. The music was indeed exceptional. Mr. Peterson might be difficult, but there was no denying that he knew how to create beautiful music. Over the next few days, Maya learned more about Lincoln High's music program. The choir had indeed won multiple state championships. Mr. Peterson had been teaching for 15 years and had built the program from almost nothing into one of the most respected in the region. Students who graduated from his program often went on to study music in college, but Maya also heard other stories. She learned about students who had been cut from the choir for minor mistakes, about the pressure some kids felt to be perfect all the time, and about how Mr. Peterson sometimes made cutting remarks that left students feeling defeated. He made Jessica cry last month, one student whispered to her friend as Maya walked past their table in the library. She missed one note during practice, and he told her maybe she should consider joining band instead. Maya felt a mix of emotions hearing these stories. On one hand, she understood that high standards could push students to achieve their best. On the other hand, she believed that music should lift people up, not tear them down. By Friday of her first week, Maya had made several friends. There was Katie, who sat with her at lunch and helped her navigate the sometimes confusing social dynamics of a new school. There was David, a quiet boy in her math class who shared her love of classical music. And there was Lily, a sophomore, who played flute in the school band and had been kind enough to show Maya around during her first few days. You should totally audition for band, Lily suggested as they walked to their lockers after school. Mr. Williams is so much nicer than Mr. Peterson, and we always have fun. Maya considered it, but something inside her wasn't ready to give up on choir yet. She had been singing since she was a child, and it felt like giving up a part of herself. To abandon it now. That afternoon, Maya made a decision. She walked to the music wing and found an empty practice room. She had discovered earlier in the week that students could use these rooms during free periods and after school. She sat down at the small upright piano and began to play. Music had always been Maya's way of processing emotions, and today she needed to work through her frustration and disappointment. She started with a gentle melody, something she had learned years ago, and let her fingers find their way across the keys. Soon she was lost in the music, playing pieces from memory and even improvising new melodies. She didn't notice that a small crowd had gathered outside the practice room door. Students walking past had stopped to listen to the beautiful music coming from inside. Even some teachers had paused in the hallway, drawn by the exceptional playing. "Who is that?" someone whispered. "I think it's the new girl, Maya," another voice replied. "She's incredible," a third person added softly. Maya continued playing, unaware of her audience. She moved from classical pieces to contemporary songs, from gentle ballads to more complex compositions that showcased her technical skill. Her playing was filled with emotion and nuance, the kind of musical expression that could only come from years of dedicated practice and natural talent. When she finally stopped, there was a moment of silence in the hallway. Then someone started clapping and others joined in. Maya looked up, startled, and realized that people had been listening. "That was amazing," Katie said, appearing in the doorway. "Maya, I had no idea you could play like that." Maya felt her cheeks warm with embarrassment. She wasn't used to performing for audiences, especially unplanned ones. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I hope I wasn't being too loud." "Are you kidding?" David said, joining Katie in the doorway. "That was the most beautiful music I've heard in this school." Other students echoed his sentiment, and Maya found herself surrounded by compliments and questions about her musical background. For the first time since arriving at Lincoln High, she felt like she was being seen for her talents rather than her disability. Word about Maya's piano playing spread quickly through the school. By Monday of her second week, several teachers had approached her about joining various musical groups. The band director, Mr. Williams, practically begged her to consider accompanying the band for their upcoming concert. "We could really use someone with your skills," he said enthusiastically. "And frankly, it would be an honor to work with such a talented musician." Maya appreciated the offers, but her heart was still set on choir. She had grown up singing, and the human voice remained her favorite instrument to accompany. She had spent countless hours learning how to support singers, how to breathe with them, how to anticipate their musical needs. During lunch on Tuesday, Maya was sitting with her new friends when the conversation turned to the upcoming choir auditions. Apparently, Mr. Peterson was planning to hold another round of auditions for students who had missed the first opportunity. "Maybe you should try again," Katie suggested. "I mean, after hearing you play last week, I think anyone would be crazy not to want you in their music program." Maya shook her head. He made it pretty clear that he wasn't interested. "But that was before people knew how talented you are," Lily chimed in. "Maybe if he heard you play, he'd change his mind." Maya doubted it, but she appreciated her friends' support. She had learned over the years that some people's minds were harder to change than others, and Mr. Peterson seemed like someone who was pretty set in his opinions. That afternoon, Maya was walking past the choir room when she heard Mr. Peterson's voice raised in frustration. "This is completely unacceptable," he was saying to someone inside. "The fall concert is in 3 weeks and we still don't have our music properly prepared." Maya slowed her pace, curious despite herself. "I'm sorry, Mr. Peterson," a woman's voice replied. "But my car is in the shop and I can't guarantee I'll be able to make it to all the rehearsals this week." Maya realized that Mr. Peterson was talking to Mrs. Chen, the choir's regular accompanist. She had learned about Mrs. Chen from other students. Apparently, she was a part-time music teacher who accompanied several local choirs and gave private piano lessons. "This is a disaster," Mr. Peterson continued. "We have parent preview night next week, and the students need consistent practice with proper accompaniment. I can't have them stumbling through their pieces because we don't have reliable piano support." Maya paused outside the choir room door, listening to the conversation. She could hear the genuine concern in Mr. Peterson's voice. Despite his harsh treatment of her the week before, it was clear that he cared deeply about his students' success. "I'll do my best to arrange alternative transportation," Mrs. Chen was saying. "Maybe I can find someone to carpool with, or perhaps take the bus." "The bus doesn't run out to your neighborhood," Mr. Peterson replied with a sigh. "And I can't ask you to impose on other people's schedules." Maya stood in the hallway, torn between her desire to help and her memory of the humiliation she had experienced just days before. Part of her wanted to walk away and let Mr. Peterson figure out his own problems. But another part of her, the part that truly loved music and understood the importance of giving students the support they needed, felt compelled to at least consider offering her assistance. She thought about all the students she had heard practicing in the choir room, about their dedication and hard work. She thought about her friends who had been kind to her, and about the music she had been missing since leaving her old school's choir program. Most of all, she thought about what her piano teacher had always told her. Music is bigger than any one person's ego. When you have the ability to make music happen, you have a responsibility to share that gift. Maya took a deep breath and knocked softly on the choir room door. Maya's soft knock on the choir room door interrupted the tense conversation between Mr. Peterson and Mrs. Chen. The room fell silent for a moment before she heard footsteps approaching. "Yes?" Mr. Peterson's voice carried a hint of irritation, probably expecting another student with a trivial question or request. Maya took a deep breath, gathering her courage. Mr. Peterson, it's Maya Chen. I couldn't help but overhear that you're having some difficulties with accompaniment for rehearsals. There was a long pause. Maya could almost feel the surprise and discomfort radiating from the choir director. Behind him, she could hear Mrs. Chen shifting in her chair. Miss Chen, Mr. Peterson said slowly, his tone carefully controlled. I don't think this concerns you. I know you already made your feelings clear about my abilities, Maya replied, keeping her voice steady and respectful. But I also know how important it is for students to have consistent musical support during rehearsals. If you need temporary help until Mrs. Chen's transportation issues are resolved, I'd be willing to assist. Mrs. Chen spoke up from behind Mr. Peterson. Oh my, are you a pianist, dear? Before Maya could answer, Mr. Peterson interjected. Mrs. Chen, Miss Chen is a student who, well, she has some limitations that would make accompanying our choir quite challenging. Maya felt the familiar sting of being dismissed, but this time she was prepared for it. Mr. Peterson, I understand your concerns, but respectfully, you've never actually heard me play. You made assumptions based on my blindness, not my musical abilities. The directness of her statement clearly caught Mr. Peterson off guard. Maya could hear other students in the hallway slowing down as they passed, probably sensing the tension in the conversation. Mrs. Chen, who seemed unaware of the previous week's encounter, moved closer to the door. What pieces can you play, sweetheart? I can play most standard choral repertoire, Maya answered. I've been accompanying choirs for 3 years and I can learn new pieces quickly. I also have experience with sight reading, though I work from Braille music or play by ear. By ear? Mrs. Chen sounded intrigued. You mean you can learn pieces just from listening? Yes, ma'am. It's a skill I developed early on. I can usually pick up a piece after hearing it a few times, and once I know it, I can adapt the accompaniment to support the singer's needs. Mr. Peterson cleared his throat impatiently. Mrs. Chen, I really don't think this is a practical solution. Our repertoire is quite complex, and we simply don't have time for experimental approaches. But Mrs. Chen seemed genuinely interested. Now, what kind of pieces have you accompanied before, Maya? At my previous school, we performed everything from classical masses to contemporary spirituals. I accompanied solos, small ensembles, and full choir pieces. We did Mozart's Requiem last spring, and Handel's Messiah the year before. Maya could hear Mrs. Chen's sharp intake of breath. Those were challenging pieces that required skilled accompaniment. My goodness, Mrs. Chen murmured. Those are serious compositions, and you played all the accompaniments? Yes, ma'am. I also helped with sectional rehearsals when singers needed to learn their individual parts. Mr. Peterson was clearly growing, more uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. Ladies, I appreciate this discussion, but we have practical concerns here. Miss Chen, even if your musical abilities were adequate, which remains to be seen, there are logistical issues. How would you follow conducting cues? How would you handle sudden tempo changes or dynamic adjustments during performance? Maya had expected these questions. I listened very carefully to the choir's breathing and vocal production. Most conductors have consistent patterns in their tempo and phrasing that become predictable once you work with them regularly. And I've learned to sense energy changes in a room, when a choir is about to crescendo or when they need more rhythmic support. That sounds fascinating, Mrs. Chen said. I'd love to hear you play sometime. Mr. Peterson stepped forward, clearly trying to regain control of the situation. Mrs. Chen, while I'm sure Miss Chen is a lovely young lady with some musical training, we can't risk the quality of our program on untested abilities. Perhaps we should focus on finding you reliable transportation instead. Maya felt her frustration building, but she forced herself to remain calm and professional. Mr. Peterson, what if I could demonstrate my abilities? You wouldn't have to commit to anything. If my playing isn't up to your standards, then you'd know for certain, and I'd stop asking. Before Mr. Peterson could respond, Mrs. Chen spoke up, enthusiastically. That's a wonderful idea. I think it would be quite educational to hear different approaches to accompaniment. Mr. Peterson found himself in an awkward position. His regular accompanist was clearly interested in hearing Maya play, and refusing now would seem unnecessarily rigid. especially with students beginning to gather in the hallway outside the choir room. "I suppose," he said reluctantly, "a brief demonstration wouldn't hurt. But I want to be clear that this is merely to satisfy curiosity, not because we're seriously considering this arrangement." Maya nodded. "I understand completely. May I come in?" Mr. Peterson stepped aside, and Maya entered the choir room with her cane. The space felt familiar now. She had memorized the layout during her brief visit the week before. She made her way, confidently, toward the piano at the front of the room. "The piano is a bit temperamental," Mrs. Chen warned as Maya approached. "Some of the keys stick slightly, and the pedal action is inconsistent." Maya sat down at the bench and ran her fingers lightly over the keys, testing their responsiveness. "I can work with this," she said. "What would you like me to play?" Mr. Peterson walked to a filing cabinet and pulled out a piece of sheet music. "This is one of our pieces for the fall concert. It's moderately challenging with some tempo changes and dynamic variations." He placed the music on the piano's music stand, then seemed to remember that Maya couldn't see it. "Oh. Well, I suppose that won't work. Could someone tell me the title?" "And composer?" Maya asked. "I might know it already." Mr. Peterson looked at the sheet music. "It's How Can I Keep From Singing, arranged by Robert Lowry." Maya smiled. "I know that one. It's a beautiful piece. What key is this arrangement in?" "F major, starting in 4/4 time with a brief introduction in 3/4. Maya placed her hands on the keys and began to play. The opening measures flowed from her fingers with confidence and sensitivity. The melody was gentle and contemplative, exactly as the piece demanded. Mrs. Chen moved closer to the piano, clearly impressed by what she was hearing. Even Mr. Peterson, despite his reservations, couldn't deny the quality of Maya's playing. As Maya continued through the piece, she began to add subtle interpretive touches, a slight ritardando here, a gentle dynamic swell there. Her playing wasn't just technically correct. It was musically intelligent and emotionally engaging. "My word," Mrs. Chen whispered to Mr. Peterson. "She's quite remarkable." But Mr. Peterson wasn't ready to concede anything yet. "It's a lovely rendition," he admitted, grudgingly, "but accompanying a choir is different from playing solo. The real test would be supporting singers while adjusting to their needs in real time." Maya finished the piece and looked up. "Would you like me to try accompanying someone singing?" At that moment, several choir students who had been drawn by the music began filtering into the room. Among them was Alex, a senior who was known for having one of the strongest voices in the choir. "That sounded amazing," Alex said as he entered. "Were you playing our fall concert piece?" "Miss Chen was demonstrating her piano skills," Mr. Peterson explained curtly. Alex's eyes lit up. "Could I try singing with you? I've been working on the solo section and I'd love to hear how it sounds with piano." Mr. Peterson looked like he wanted to object, but Mrs. Chen clapped her hands together excitedly. "What a perfect opportunity. Alex, you know that piece inside and out." More students had gathered now, curious about what was happening. Maya could feel the energy in the room shifting as anticipation built. "I suppose," Mr. Peterson said reluctantly, "a brief demonstration with vocals wouldn't hurt." Alex moved to stand beside the piano, and Maya positioned her hands on the keys again. "Just start singing when you feel ready," she told him. "I'll follow your lead." Alex began the opening verse, his clear tenor voice filling the room with warmth and confidence. Maya listened for a moment, then joined in with the accompaniment, matching his tempo and breathing perfectly. As they progressed through the piece, something magical began to happen. Maya's playing seemed to anticipate Alex's musical choices, supporting him during challenging passages and giving him space to shine during expressive moments. When he took a slight ritardando on a particularly emotional phrase, Maya was right there with him. When he needed rhythmic support during a tricky run, she provided it seamlessly. The other students in the room had fallen completely silent, captivated by the beautiful collaboration they were witnessing. Even Mr. Peterson found himself leaning forward, despite his determination to remain skeptical. As the piece reached its soaring climax, Alex's voice rose with confidence and power, supported by Maya's sensitive accompaniment. The final notes hung in the air for a moment before the room erupted in spontaneous applause. "That was incredible," Alex said, beaming. "I've never sung that piece better. It felt like you knew exactly what I needed before I even knew it myself." The applause gradually died down, but the energy in the choir room remained electric. Maya could feel the shift in atmosphere. What had started as a reluctant demonstration had become something truly special. Students were whispering excitedly among themselves, and she could hear more footsteps in the hallway as word spread that something remarkable was happening in the music wing. Mr. Peterson stood frozen near his desk, clearly struggling with what he had just witnessed. His carefully constructed assumptions about Maya's limitations were crumbling before his eyes, and he seemed unsure how to respond. Mrs. Chen, however, had no such hesitation. She rushed over to the piano bench where Maya still sat. "My dear, that was absolutely extraordinary. I've been accompanying choirs for 20 years, and I rarely hear such intuitive musical partnership." "Thank you," Maya replied quietly, though inside she felt a mixture of pride and nervous anticipation. She could sense that Mr. Peterson was wrestling with his preconceptions, but she wasn't sure which way he would decide. Alex was still grinning from ear to ear. "Seriously, Mr. Peterson, that felt amazing. I've been struggling with that piece for weeks, but somehow with Maya playing, everything just clicked." More students had crowded into the room now, drawn by the beautiful music and the buzz of excitement. Rachel, the choir section leader, stepped forward. "Could we try one of our other pieces? I'd love to see how this works with a group song." Before Mr. Peterson could object, Mrs. Chen clapped her hands together. "What a wonderful idea. Maya, would you be willing to try accompanying a small group?" Maya nodded, feeling her confidence growing with each moment. "Of course. What piece would you like to try?" Rachel looked at Mr. Peterson, seeking permission, but he seemed lost in thought. Taking his silence as consent, she turned to the other students. "How about Bridge Over Troubled Water? We've been working on the harmonies for weeks." "That's a challenging arrangement," Mrs. Chen noted. "It requires very delicate balance between the piano and voices." Maya had accompanied that song before, at her old school. It was indeed tricky. The piano part needed to be supportive without overwhelming the gentle vocal harmonies. "I know that piece, Mine," she said. "Should I start with the introduction?" 6 students gathered around the piano, forming a small semicircle. Maya could hear them taking their positions, some shuffling sheet music, others just preparing to sing from memory. She placed her hands on the keys and began the gentle, flowing introduction. The opening notes filled the room with a sense of calm and beauty. Maya's touch was delicate yet confident, setting the perfect mood for the emotional ballad. When the voices joined in, something magical happened once again. The lead vocalist, a girl named Jordan, had a pure, clear tone that soared effortlessly over Maya's accompaniment. The harmonizing voices blended perfectly, creating rich, full chords that resonated throughout the room. Maya listened carefully to each singer, adjusting her playing to support the weaker voices and complement the stronger ones. During the bridge section, when the music builds to an emotional climax, Maya sensed the choir's energy rising and matched it perfectly. Her left hand provided a steady driving rhythm while her right hand added delicate melodic flourishes that enhanced the vocal lines without competing with them. "This is incredible," whispered one of the students who was watching from the doorway. Students from other classes had begun gathering in the hallway, attracted by the beautiful music floating through the corridor. Teachers, too, had started to take notice. Mrs. Rodriguez, the guidance counselor, appeared in the doorway with a smile of amazement on her face. As the song reached its powerful conclusion, with all the voices joining together in perfect harmony, Maya provided a piano backdrop that was both supportive and inspiring. The final notes faded into silence, and for a moment nobody moved or spoke. Then the applause began, not just from the students in the choir room, but from the crowd that had gathered in the hallway. The sound was spontaneous and enthusiastic, clearly coming from people who had been genuinely moved by what they had heard. "That was beautiful," Jordan said, her eyes bright with excitement. I felt like I could really let my voice soar because I knew the piano would be there to catch me. The other choir members nodded in agreement, sharing their own positive reactions. Maya felt a warmth spreading through her chest. This was why she loved music, these moments of connection and shared beauty. Mrs. Chen was practically beaming. "Mr. Peterson, this is exactly what our students need. This kind of musical collaboration elevates everyone's performance." But Mr. Peterson remained silent, his expression unreadable. Maya could sense that he was still processing what he had witnessed, possibly reconsidering years of assumptions about disability and ability. Principal Henderson chose that moment to appear in the doorway, drawn by the commotion in the hallway. "What's all this excitement about?" she asked with a curious smile. Mrs. Rodriguez quickly filled her in. "Maya here has been demonstrating some remarkable piano skills. The music has been absolutely beautiful." Principal Henderson looked impressed. "I heard something wonderful as I was walking down the hall. Maya, isn't it? You're new to our school this year?" "Yes, ma'am," Maya replied. "I transferred from Lincoln East." "Well, it sounds like we're lucky to have you. I hope you'll consider sharing your talents with our school community." The principal's presence seemed to snap Mr. Peterson out of his contemplative state. He cleared his throat and addressed the growing crowd. "Thank you all for your interest, but we do need to get back to our regular rehearsal schedule." The students began to disperse, though many were still talking excitedly about what they had heard. Mrs. Chen lingered, clearly hoping to continue the conversation about Maya's potential involvement with the choir program. "Mr. Peterson," she said carefully, "given my transportation difficulties this week, perhaps Maya could help out with a few rehearsals. Just temporarily, of course, until I can arrange more reliable transportation." Maya held her breath, waiting for his response. She could feel the tension in the room as everyone waited to see whether the choir director would set aside his preconceptions. "I need some time to think about this," Mr. Peterson said finally. "It's not a decision I can make lightly." Mrs. Chen nodded understandingly. "Of course, but I do hope you'll consider it. What we heard today was truly special." As the room emptied, Maya remained at the piano bench, uncertain whether she should leave or wait for further discussion. Mr. Peterson was organizing papers at his desk, and she could sense his internal struggle. Finally, he looked up. "Miss Chen, I owe you an apology. I made assumptions about your abilities without giving you a fair chance to demonstrate them." Maya felt a flutter of hope. "Thank you for saying that, Mr. Peterson. I know my blindness can seem like a barrier, but I've learned to work around it in ways that actually make me a better musician in some respects." "How so?" he asked, seeming genuinely curious now. "When you can't rely on visual cues, you develop incredibly acute hearing. I can hear things in voices and instruments that sighted musicians sometimes miss. I notice breath patterns, subtle pitch, variations, emotional nuances. It makes me a more responsive accompanist." Mr. Peterson nodded slowly. That's actually quite insightful. I hadn't considered that perspective." They talked for several more minutes, with Maya explaining some of the techniques she had developed over the years. She described how she memorized complex pieces, how she learned to anticipate conductors' movements through their breathing patterns, and how she had developed an almost intuitive sense of musical timing. "At my old school," Maya said, "I didn't just accompany the choir. I helped train new singers, worked with soloists on their interpretation, and even assisted with music theory instruction. My piano teacher always said that limitation often breeds innovation." Mr. Peterson was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than Maya had ever heard it. "Miss Chen, I pride myself on recognizing musical talent, but today I learned that I've been looking in the wrong places. What you demonstrated today wasn't just technical skill. It was musical artistry of a very high level." Maya felt tears prick at her eyes. This was the recognition she had longed for, the acknowledgement that her disability didn't define her musical worth. "Would you," Mr. Peterson continued hesitantly, "be interested in helping us out this week while Mrs. Chen deals with her transportation issues? I can't promise anything permanent, but we could see how it works out." Maya's heart soared. "I would love that, Mr. Peterson. Thank you for giving me this chance." As she gathered her things to leave, Mr. Peterson called out one more time, "Miss Chen, I hope you'll also consider auditioning for choir. I believe I may have been too hasty in my initial assessment." Maya turned toward his voice, a smile spreading across her face. "I'd like that very much." Walking out of the school that afternoon, Maya felt lighter than she had in weeks. The hallway conversations she overheard were all positive, filled with excitement about the music they had heard, and anticipation for what might come next. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother asking about her day. Maya smiled as she typed back, "I think things are about to get much better." The next morning, Maya arrived at school early. She wanted to practice with the choir's piano before the regular rehearsal, making sure she was completely prepared for her first official day as temporary accompanist. Her mother had been so excited about the opportunity that she had insisted on driving Maya to school herself. "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart," her mother had said during the drive. "You never gave up, even when things seemed impossible." Maya smiled, remembering her mother's words as she made her way to the music wing. The hallways were mostly empty, with only a few early arriving students and teachers scattered about. She found the choir room unlocked, as Mr. Peterson had promised, and settled in at the piano to warm up. As she played through some scales and exercises, Maya reflected on how much had changed in just 2 weeks. When she had first walked into Lincoln High, she never could have imagined that she would end up here, about to accompany one of the state's most prestigious high school choirs. Other students began trickling into the room about 20 minutes before the official start of rehearsal. Maya could hear their excited chatter as they discussed the previous day's events. "I still can't believe how amazing that sounded," Rachel was saying to a friend. "It was like having a professional accompanist." "I heard teachers were talking about it in the faculty lounge," another voice added. Mrs. Rodriguez said it was the most beautiful music she'd heard in the school in years. When Mr. Peterson arrived, he seemed different somehow. His usual stern demeanor was softer, and when he greeted Maya, there was genuine warmth in his voice. "Good morning, Miss Chen. Thank you for coming in early. Are you feeling prepared for today's rehearsal?" "Yes, sir. I've been working through the pieces Mrs. Chen left for me. I think I'm ready." "Excellent. Today we'll be focusing on our 3 main pieces for the fall concert. The students know them well, so this should be a good test of how we work together as a team." As the full choir assembled, Maya could sense their anticipation. Word had spread throughout the school about her performance the previous day, and many students seemed genuinely excited to work with her. "All right, everyone," Mr. Peterson called the rehearsal to order. "Today we have Maya Chen accompanying us while Mrs. Chen deals with some transportation issues. I know you all heard her play yesterday, so let's see how we sound as a full choir." They started with their most challenging piece, a complex arrangement of Ave Maria that required precise timing and delicate balance between voices. Maya had studied the piece the night before, learning every nuance and dynamic marking. As the choir began to sing, Maya felt that familiar thrill of musical collaboration. Her fingers found the keys with confidence, providing a foundation that allowed the singers to soar. She listened carefully to each section, the soprano's pure, clear tones, the alto's rich harmonies, the tenor's bright energy, and the bass's solid foundation. What happened next exceeded everyone's expectations. The choir, supported by Maya's sensitive accompaniment, sounded better than they had all semester. Students who had been struggling with difficult passages suddenly found their confidence. The blend between sections became seamless, and the overall musical expression reached new heights. "Stop, stop," Mr. Peterson called out about halfway through the piece, but his tone was one of amazement rather than criticism. "That was extraordinary. In 15 years of directing this choir, I've rarely heard such musical cohesion." The students looked pleased but slightly confused by the interruption. "Maya," Mr. Peterson continued, "what you're doing with the accompaniment is remarkable. You're not just playing the notes, you're enhancing every aspect of their performance. How do you do that?" Maya felt her cheeks warm at the praise. "I listen for what each section needs at any given moment. Sometimes the sopranos need rhythmic support on a difficult run, Sometimes the basses need harmonic reinforcement. I try to be like a musical safety net that catches anyone who might be struggling while lifting up those who are already confident. That's exactly what a great accompanist should do, Mr. Peterson said, and Maya could hear genuine admiration in his voice. Let's continue with the piece and see how it develops. They worked through Ave Maria from beginning to end, and the result was stunning. When the final notes faded away, the room fell into awed silence before erupting in spontaneous applause from students who were genuinely amazed by their own performance. "I've never sung that piece so well," admitted Tyler, one of the tenor section leaders. "It felt like Maya knew exactly when I needed help and when to give me space to shine." They moved on to their second piece, a contemporary arrangement of Hallelujah that showcased individual soloists as well as full choir harmonies. Maya had worried about this one because it required careful balance between supporting the soloists and maintaining the choir's energy during group sections. Jordan, who had sung with Maya the day before, stepped forward for the first solo verse. As she began to sing, Maya provided a gentle, flowing accompaniment that highlighted the emotional depth of the lyrics without overwhelming Jordan's voice. "Incredible," whispered Alex from his position with the tenors. "Listen to how she's making Jordan sound even better than usual." As the piece progressed through various soloists and group sections, Maya demonstrated her ability to adapt her playing style to each singer's needs. With confident performers, she provided subtle harmonic support that enhanced their natural abilities. With less experienced singers, she offered more rhythmic and melodic guidance that helped them stay on track. The climactic final verse, where all voices joined together in soaring harmony, was perhaps the most beautiful music the Lincoln High Choir had ever produced. Maya's accompaniment swelled and diminished with perfect timing, creating a musical landscape that allowed every voice to shine while contributing to the greater whole. When they finished, several students had tears in their eyes. Even Mr. Peterson seemed moved by what he had heard. "This is what music should be," he said quietly. "This is why I became a teacher." They continued rehearsal with their third piece, and the pattern continued. Each song sounded better than it ever had before, with Maya's accompaniment bringing out the best in every student. As rehearsal time came to an end, Mr. Peterson addressed the choir. "Students, what you've experienced today is special. This is the level of musical collaboration that professional musicians strive for. Maya has shown us what's possible when we truly listen to each other and support each other's musical goals." After the students left, Mr. Peterson approached Maya at the piano. "Miss Chen, I need to be completely honest with you. What happened today was transformative, not just for the students but for me as an educator." Maya looked up, unsure where this conversation was heading. "I've spent 15 years building this program, and I've always prided myself on having high standards and achieving excellence. But today I realized that I've been thinking about excellence in the wrong way." He sat down in a nearby chair, his voice becoming more reflective. "I thought excellence meant perfection, meant having students who never made mistakes and who could execute difficult music flawlessly. But what you showed me today is that real excellence is about lifting others up, about finding ways to make everyone sound better than they thought possible." Maya felt touched by his honesty. "Mr. Peterson, that's what music taught me too. When I lost my sight, I had to learn that being different didn't mean being limited. It meant finding new ways to connect and contribute. I owe you more than an apology," he continued. "I owe you recognition for teaching me something fundamental about music and about teaching. Would you consider becoming our permanent accompanist? I know Mrs. Chen was hoping to reduce her hours anyway, and frankly, after today I can't imagine our program without you." Maya's heart raced with excitement, but she tried to keep her voice steady. "I would be honored, Mr. Peterson, but I'd also still like to audition for the choir itself. I think I could contribute as both a singer and an accompanist." Mr. Peterson smiled, the first genuine smile Maya had seen from him. "Miss Chen, after what I witnessed today, I think you could contribute to this program in ways I haven't even imagined yet. Let's schedule your choir audition for tomorrow after school." As Maya packed up her things to leave, students kept stopping by to thank her and express their excitement about working with her again. The energy in the school had shifted dramatically from her first week, when she felt like an outsider struggling to find her place. Walking through the hallways, Maya overheard conversations that warmed her heart. "Did you hear the choir today? They sounded like angels." "I heard Maya Chen is going to be their new accompanist. My sister said she's incredible. I wish I could play piano like that. She makes it look so easy." When Maya's mother picked her up after school, she immediately noticed the change in her daughter's demeanor. "You're glowing," her mother said with a smile. "I take it today went well?" Maya settled into the passenger seat with a contented sigh. "Mom, I think I finally found where I belong." That evening, Maya called her former choir director at Lincoln East to share the news. Mrs. Williams had been like a mentor to her, and Maya knew she would be excited to hear about this development. "Maya, I'm so proud of you," Mrs. Williams said after hearing the whole story. "But I'm not surprised.